You know, when I was a kid, I used to sit at my nan's house watching YouTube on their Virgin Media box. I spent those days watching all kinds of things. Lots of Minecraft, you know, the Herobrine sightings, mod reviews, that kind of thing. I watched some speedrunning stuff, so your average Mario 64 run, bit of Zelda, couple of Metroid runs I believe, and other gaming stuff too. And Zelda was most of that for me. At some point in the early 2010s, I found myself drawn to a YouTuber known as Yuri of Wind. Yuri's that kind of guy who never really took to running the channel like a business. He just did what he liked, and you know, he was very authentic with the way that he worded things. The way that I discovered Yuri was via his Gaming Mystery series, because ultimately I had two great loves in gaming as a child: Super Mario 64 and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, because those two games were two of the most revolutionary games of all time, and any kind of revolutionary product has one hell of a development history, and honestly, it has never been truer than with these games. And to be fair, the vast majority of first-party N64 games too. Not to say anything obscure, everyone knows about this, you know. It's quite well known that the N64 was supposed to have an add-on, and most games were going to support it. The 64 disk drive, which was a floppy disk add-on for the 64, it was supposed to be worldwide, but never ended up leaving Japan because of an absolutely botched launch by the time they actually got the thing working properly. So the loss of that add-on ended up having to scale back most games, unfortunately. Look guys, I'm not here to just talk about the way that they plan to have Zelda 64 have a feature where you cut down a tree and it would remain cut down for the rest of the game, because to be quite blunt with you all, it's probably bullshit. I'm sorry, it probably is. I mean, let's face it, in what way would that have actually benefited the game design? I highly doubt they'd have ended up actually going through with that idea. But these videos used to keep me incredibly intrigued. You know, cut content in a video game or film or TV series, it's always interesting. Because at the end of the day, it's kind of the have-nots of media. You know, it's the stuff that we don't have, but we want. We really want it, because we want what we can't have. That's human nature. And we don't get to experience it, because what's not to love? But as well as Yuri of Wind, there was a channel called Beta 64. These were the two most prominent channels in that era of my childhood to grab all of this information about the development of the games I love. And as I touched on with the tree thing, one of the most common claims about the development of any game plan for the 64 DD was the idea of players' choices being meant to have kind of long-reaching consequences or impacts. I can believe this would have been true to an extent, and I'm not disputing that it's possible within the tech that DD would have had with the rewritable storage. But a lot of the time when a developer is developing a game, they tend to get ahead of themselves with the technology they're working with and just scheme off ideas that would be cool as opposed to having any kind of real impact. So, for example, there was a claim about one of the two Sonic Adventure games in which Sonic would have a set of two choices and that would impact the story. So, a Telltale game, effectively. Ultimately, that often isn't true. I'm not sure it would be true. I can't say for sure because I wasn't in the dev room. But I digress. But that's not to say everything that they talked about in the development room was even possible either. Because that's the conclusion I've come to quite recently, because I spend most of my life looking at this sort of stuff, so you know, I'm kind of getting a general gist of things. But I've done a little bit of game development in my life, and it's not a great deal. I did a little bit in my mid-teens. I actually rebranded this channel to Infinity Games back in 2019 in order to create devlogs for my GCSE project, which I'm not in possession of anymore, I don't think I put them on Drive. Anyways, ultimately my point here is it's very easy to get ahead of yourself when you're planning a project. But does that really matter? These ideas contribute to a bigger picture of why these betas are all so special, and why, in particular, the Space World 95 build of Super Mario 64, for example, are so highly sought after to this day. As I said before, as humans we tend to want the things we can't have. So, when we hear that a piece of content was cut from a game we love, the instinct within us is that we now want that thing more than anything. And it's true with most game betas. With Zelda, for example, I have kept up with the development history of most of the 3D games. The only one I don't really care much for in terms of development history is Skyward Sword, as they had a pretty clear vision for the game from the beginning, following Twilight Princess. Ocarina of Time had usable medallions. Majora had the adult mask, although I'm 90% sure that's just a Fierce Deity mask, but, you know, speculation is going to be speculation. Wind Waker had aging that never made it into the game, and both Twilight Princess and Breath of the Wild had magic meters that got themselves cut. Those are all pretty neat things. Cutting them didn't ruin their respective games. And the second reason for me is the fact that playing games as children, they feel nigh on infinite to us. I mean, I first played Super Mario 64 when I was around 2 years old, if I were to estimate. It and Super Mario Advance 4 and Mario Bros. 3 were my two first games, as far as I'm concerned. And it blew me away to see it. And honestly, it felt like the game was infinite at the time. And then I played Ocarina of Time not long after, when I first discovered my parents' GameCube. And when we're kids, we see them in a whole other light. This is going to be a little bit hard to explain, because honestly, nobody has ever made this comparison before, just trust me. My earliest memory of Ocarina of Time is, for some reason, inseparably paired with the memory of this show called Johnny and the Sprites on Playhouse Disney. The Green Forest gave off this really comforting vibe, and when I found out that there was a whole world outside of the forest, you should have seen how much awe I was in then. And believe me, I had a lot of dreams regarding Ocarina of Time and its land of Hyrule. And yeah, but you gotta ask yourself, why specifically Nintendo 64 games? Like, we obsess quite heavily over development stuff in general, but it's more prominent with Nintendo 64 games, and that's quite prominent because whenever we hear about things in the Gigaleak, the excitement's about things from the late 90s, about builds from the 64. and I think one of the reasons is quite obvious. A lot of their potential was stripped back when they were dialed back to cartridges. Now, Nintendo were able to evolve the cartridge over the course of the N64's life to rival the storage capacity of a floppy disk. But most games for the 64 have quite heavily documented cutbacks as a direct consequence of having to lose, for example, the N64 DD's real-time clock. Now, the cutbacks that these games received isn't always entirely clear, but you can imagine that anything that required rewritable storage, such as with F-Zero X's expansion pack, which was I believe it was the only expansion pack to have ended up making it out of development. So, the expansion pack's stage builder, for example, or let's just say the cut down trees in Hyrule Field that they go on about, anything like that, or a real-time clock. So take for example Animal Crossing, which started out as an N64 game. Now Animal Crossing made it out, but that's a whole other story because I had to make more expansions to the 64 cartridge. But you're getting the picture. That would be the first stuff that you can imagine would be on the chopping block because of that. Now, in the interest of moving this forward before I end up on a serious tangent, the general point I have with all of this is that short of a few short trailers made for Space World and eventually E3, a lot of this information isn't really concrete. A developer saying something in an interview doesn't necessarily make it gospel. Miyamoto is quite heavy proof of this. Or rather, it's really not gospel. In fact, it's quite clearly bullshit a lot of the time. We've since had a lot of quite heavy leaks about these betas since the kind of prime era for those videos detailing all of this stuff. And we also have little things like Tim Stamper tweeting videos of different beta cartridges for Rareware's past betas. So take Project Dream or Conquer 12 Tales. And believe me, I, more than anyone, would love to play 12 Tales someday, and really hope that eventually it makes its way onto my computer. So we have a lot more information than we used to have in the early 2010s. And for me, a full recreation / reimagining mod of Ocarina of Time that aims to recreate the beta of the game is now my most hotly anticipated game, more or less. It's one of the games I'm most excited about. And you gotta ask yourself, why over everything that's actually releasing in the industry is a recreation of a beta that I know for a fact that if they ever faithfully recreated what it really was, probably wouldn't live up to my expectations. Why is this still so interesting to this day? And it's quite simple. We're attracted to mystery. We as humans cannot resist a good mystery. We're drawn to the idea that a lot of amazing things were left on the cutting room floor. Mario 64 was once said to have about 40 courses during development. We only have 15. So, naturally we wonder what those 25 cut courses could have entailed. Of course, this got a bit blurry in 2020 when, as I've recently brought up again on the channel, it became became a bit of a trend to go on about the beta of the game, and honestly, the Mario 64 beta project and the whole meme of every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalised, they really played on this intrigue in ways that make more sense than anything to me. The mystery of that period of development was turned into, and forgive me for using this phrase, because I know that it's almost a meme at this point, the way that people just throw this phrase around. It turns it into a bit of a liminal space, and almost a kind of creepypasta. And yeah, it was overdone by the time the trend ended. And believe me, it's made it hell to research Mario 64's actual beta. But I was hooked, and those of you that have been with me for a while, and those of you that have seen the video that came out on my 21st, you guys know that this had me hooked. And yeah, then we got B3313. And B3313 absolutely encapsulates that feeling perfectly. It recreates what we knew, then expands on it all. And I can't even begin to work out how much content there is. And I have a script for this video, but I'm going to have to go off of it because the information I wrote in the script is actually no longer valid, because I said there's about 150 stars. Double it, in fact, times it by 3. 450 stars, according to the wiki. As of about 8 days ago, as of recording this audio, as of the 4th of February, with the new version of B3313. Lots and lots and lots of stars, lots and lots and lots of content. It's an absolutely incredible project. It captures the childhood fear, awe, wonder, and everything else that I could possibly have had when I was young playing the game. And it actually scratches most of the itches I have for Super Mario 64's cut content. Just got to avoid the faceless ones. Now, I said it before, but we know so much more thanks to certain leaks, and in particular, the so-called Gigaleak of 2020 has now taken so much of that wonder away. All those stories we used to hear about Ura Zelda and the Unicorn Fountain, Zelda Gaiden's 7-day cycle, Ocarina of Time's footprints in the sand, and to be honest, anything about Mario 64 that you don't read directly on the cutting room floor are either entirely nonsense or very early development ideas that were definitely always getting cut. And you got Ura Zelda. Oh, Ura Zelda. It's the most lied about of all of them. Sure, Master Quest is definitely not everything Ura Zelda was ever going to be. That's true enough. But Majora was made in order to avoid Ura Zelda ever being made. It hadn't gone anywhere by the time that Zelda Gaiden took its place. And that's why Master Quest is as bare bones as it was. Can't be the running man. Zora's Domain was never going to be unfrozen. And of course you won't find the Triforce. And to be honest, when you think about that original cinematic from Space World, it never made that much sense anyway, or a chest wouldn't reveal all 3 pieces. It's just not how it works. That's what I call trailer bait. Using iconography from the series to say Zelda is back, baby. Ultimately, we can just leave Kaze Eminor to do Ocarina of Time expansions for the rest of time, and believe me, that man is talented. It occurs to me while I was writing this that for the most part it's Mario and Zelda that get all the intrigue. But let it be remembered that Dinosaur Planet was a Nintendo 64 game that got turned into a GameCube travesty that bastardized everything that Dinosaur Planet had going for it and ruined Star Fox by shoving it into a, excuse the phrase, mid-Zelda-like. I don't know why I wrote that, I hate that phrase. Animal Crossing was going to be a 64DD game, as I said. They ended up making a Japanese-only cartridge that had a real-time clock stuffed into it. So, like Pokemon Gold and Silver and Crystal, for example. And they just re-released it on the GameCube a couple of years later. Kirby's Air Ride, I'm not sure how well known this fact is. It's not a secret that it used to be an N64 game. I think it's called Kirby Ball or something. Banjo-Kazooie started its life out as a Super Nintendo RPG. And to avoid getting distracted, we shall move on. The point is, Nintendo 64 games all changed quite substantially while they were being developed. Whether it's the amount of courses, the genre, or even the platform they'd eventually be released on. And I might never be that running man to learn the overture of sages to take me to the sacred realm. But these classic mysteries have contributed so much to my life. My passion for game development, which I swear will actually turn into a real game that isn't just escape infection, really began to blaze because of these development stories. And the fact we're finally getting answers to so much of this is so special to me. Even if it kills the mystery of this stuff, the only thing better than lost media is media that is eventually found. After all, we managed to find the Dragon Ball Z episode of JBVO, didn't we? If we're able to find something as rare as that, I have faith anything can be found. Since the beginning of my life, the Nintendo 64 has been my favourite console. When it was still mainly living in our loft, it would be the thing I always wanted out of there. It contains 2 out of 3 of my favourite games ever made. Like, 2 out of 3 of my top 3. It's where my gaming journey began, and the fact that to this day I continue to get more out of this gorgeous device's games is honestly, absolutely fantastic. With Ocarina and Majora in particular, I'm so glad they have had such long lives. As someone that doesn't really like modern Zelda because of how different it is to the standards that these 2 games set, the fact that Ocarina has both a beta recreation coming that will hopefully give a familiar yet different vibe, and many other mods that give it whole new experiences. Most recently, Project Indigo, which has a whole host of new items, is such a relief to me. I can't speak too much about this last bit about the 64-bit era because we haven't had a CRT in a long time, and I still was incredibly young when ours blew up that one Christmas. It's been said that 64-bit gaming looks so incredible on CRT TVs because of the lower aspect ratio concealing things, and it feeling almost infinite to different players. This is actually rather true now of Minecraft, a game which actually is more or less infinite. But back then, especially when these new 3D games had first come out, they were so big. Even if they were quite literally only around 30 megabytes maybe, at most. My first time playing Ocarina of Time, before I knew where it was going, with only Kokiri Forest and the Collector's Edition retrospective to give me any ideas, that game felt huge, it felt magical. I had so many dreams directly spawned by this game. And Ocarina is one of those games that can still make me feel emotional to this day because of how much it means to me. I found my favourite song because of it. I became a fan of the Zelda series for real because of it. And now in 2024, I finally completed a long time mystery I've been trying to solve since I was 8, give or take, by finding a video I haven't seen since around the year it had released, making fun of Nathan the Fairy. But why is all this relevant? Why should you care? Ocarina of Mysteries have almost all been solved to me now. Whatever was left, I've got a page on Facebook that I read that regularly informs me of details such as stuff about Sheik being foreshadowed by a gossip stone. Things that once felt mysterious to me regarding its development have pretty much been solved, because we have the resources to piece things together. I mean, I was looking a few hours before recording this for some information about the items that got cut, like the medallions, to see if there was anything concrete. But that's about the only thing that's a little bit vague, really, now. It's kind of the same as whenever science explains a phenomenon that occurs in the world. That phenomenon starts to feel a little less special in a way. When you first stop believing in Santa Claus as well, that first Christmas is a little bit less cheerful. Still love the presents, but there's almost a cynicism to it. Because we as a species thrive off of mystery. That's where our imaginations run wild. And that is why Nintendo 64 games have such incredible development cycles. Now that I've rambled on a bit about the Nintendo 64, I'd like to formally give you all a Happy New Year to all of you at home. I know for a fact by now that I have definitely done videos prior to this, and a stream in fact, which it's rather unusual for me to do those these days. But while I was writing this, I'd only scrapped a video for being dull. I'd done nothing actually worth releasing. But I said in the unreleased video, any project I have slated for last year has been bumped up to this year, including the 2003 stuff. Originally that was going to be the big Valentine's/birthday video. I still haven't finished the script to the 2003 opener, so I'd better get back to that, I think. I do have a big review pretty much scripted that needs a little bit of fine tuning, and I still need to film things for it. And there are some ideas that I want to bring back out from my archives, because I actually do note some of my ideas now, believe it or not. And I think I might be able to edit up the first video of a new series I was supposed to release last year, but never actually got around to finishing. But we'll spend the next month or so especially,
I sense I've made a mistake of some kind.
going for everything, giving it a little bit of a fix up, and we'll see what's what. Till then, take care everyone, and I will see you very soon. This has been Kit from Infinity Games, signing off. Hey guys, so what you've just seen is the video that I've been working on since fucking February, and I cannot believe it took me 6 months to actually put the footage together for that. It was not that hard. So, a few things were said in the video that aren't actually true, necessarily. In fact, there was a claim I'd made about the beta of one of the games, which I've now forgotten which one it was, that isn't, strictly speaking, accurate, and I found out right after recording, and I forgot to go back and at least leave a note for myself. I watched the Digino Gaming video immediately after, and that's what actually delayed the video in the first place. because I knew I'd have to go and rectify that error. So, anyway, I don't know when the next video is going to be. I don't know any of that at the moment. But this video does represent a desire to veer to a more well-structured form of content. I've been working for a couple of years on adjusting my format, and it just never happens. So, here's what I'll say for now. The video I refer to and jab at myself a little bit about how it wasn't a minor little rework is a review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Alongside that, I'm working on a review of the games related to that, but there's something that I want to try and do first. Not just obtain the rest of the games for it. There's information that I need to try and uncover. So that's always fun. I'll see how that goes. Originally, my idea for the end of this video was going to be a Yuri of Wind style end slate, because without him we wouldn't be here. Without Yuri we wouldn't have actually gotten this far. I'm not going to do that because I don't know how to do it. A lot of my humour when I do this stuff is very influenced by him. Likewise, we wouldn't be here without Better 64's more objective approach. Yuri was more analysis of the facts to infer stuff. Better 64 would often stick more to what we knew objectively at the time, although most of that is now outdated information a decade later. So, first of all, a giant thank you to them. I absolutely adore both of their channels, though both have been MIA for about a year at this point, although Yuri said he will be uploading again soon. He's just going through some stuff, which is a permanent staple of his channel, unfortunately. He's always had a bit of a issue I don't know what it is. I don't care to know, to be honest. It's not my business. But so, special thank you to both of them for all that they've done over the years for the community. Giant thank you to the Lost Media Wiki for, first of all, encouraging my interest in this sort of stuff, but also cataloguing so much of it so it's easier to look to. The cutting room floor, without them I really would have been lost, because as I said, Mario 64 in particular is impossible to research these days. Special thank you to, I'm going to have to actually check his name, well, the channel name. Let's try this. To Azori 4-star for his fantastic music video of Ocarina of Time to the song It Ends Tonight, which is one of my favourite songs of all time. A little thank you to the likes of Dan TDM and the guy that did the Minecraft Pocket Edition Herobrine sighting back in the 2010s. You know, the context that I put this video into, very much tied to that. And ultimately, thank you to all of you guys who, I dare say, will be quite surprised to see a video like this on the channel. So with that, I think I'm going to leave it there, because I said I wasn't going to ramble on like Yuri. But this has been Infinity Games. And with any luck, it won't take 6 months to finish another project. I'm seriously sorry about that. Catch you around.